Oryu is a skeptic loser who looks like a deflated Nanami until he moves in with 3 temple sisters and has to choose which to pipe. It all starts when he arrives at the shrine. The tourists think he might be praying to the gods to pass his exams, but Oryu doesn't believe in all that stuff. He'd rather hang out with Tom Cruise and the rest of the science huggers. He then heads up to the temple to introduce himself, but no one seems to be around. Oryu decides to look around when he hears the sound of girls changing in the next room. He narrowly escapes the usual walk-into-plot scene, but the door suddenly flies open, and 3 plot goddesses appear for a second.
Oh my!
The door closes again, and Oryu hopes he can pretend he didn't just experience a second solar system, but the girls return to give him hell for peeping. The girls turn out to be shrine maidens, and Oryu later explains that he's supposed to be moving in with them. The tsundere sister refuses to accept that some creeping Tom would be staying with them, so Oryu asks for the priest to prove it. Unfortunately, their granddad won't be back till the next day. The girls then introduce themselves. There's Asadi, the youngest sister who secretly wants her V card swept aggressively, Yaa, the older sister who sounds like she's permanently on acid, and Yuna, who's got a successful future as a Karen. Oryu is thankful they're all weirdos, so he doesn't have to pretend to play nice with them. His only interest is in the pages of his book. At this, Yuna grudgingly warns him to be on his best behavior if he hopes to get dinner. Later, Yaa shows Oryu to his room, claiming to have cleaned up for his sake. However, when she opens the door to the overstuffed closet, Oryu rushes to save her from being pummeled by garbage. Yuna runs in to check on them and finds Oryu getting buried under Yaa's golden globes, causing her to unleash the beast. Later, Oryu returns to studying when Asadi appears and suggests they get to know each other better. When Oryu refuses her company, Asadi worries that his trouser equipment doesn't work right. She then decides to comb through his luggage for proof that he can get it up at night. Oryu tries to stop her but slips on some shorts and lands right on her. When Yuna comes in to check on them, she finds Oryu's bolt too close to Asadi's nut and turns into Godzilla. Later, Oryu still struggles to study, so he decides to take a potty break. When he sees the light on in one of the rooms, he goes to check who's still up and finds Yuna spread out on the floor. To stop her from catching a cold, he grabs a blanket for her, but Yuna wakes up at the wrong time and thinks he's up to no good. She freaks out, causing the other sisters to walk in on them playing body twisters. They shut the door for their own sanity, but Oryu tries to explain that he prefers his hand over girls, prompting Yuna to scatter salt on his evil. Afterward, they all sit together, and Oryu asks what Yuna was doing up so late. He notices the papers on the table, so the girls explain that they're Omamori charms. Yuna insists that she had to do it alone, so that Oryu's jizz-stained hands would never touch them, making Oryu ask why she would go that far if it doesn't make any money. At that, the girls begin to pull out the red strings from their hair, explaining that shrine maidens help to connect people who need help to the gods. They then make their prayers with the red string wrapped around their hands. Oryu asks if the string is necessary, so they explain that the strings are something their mother left behind. Even though their mother is gone now, the string still helps them connect to her. Yuna asks Oryu what he was doing up to, so he says he was studying as usual. When he says he's trying to get into a prestigious medical school, the girls are surprised that he didn't just want to wank himself to death. The girls tell him that some of the gods are said to grant success in passing exams, and they're in the season of miracles. Apparently, there's a magical star shower happening soon, and legend says that if you let the stardust fall on you, your wish will come true. When Yuna assures him that the gods will surely hear his prayer, Oryu calls it a load of bull. As Oryu explains that the impact of a meteor would turn you into a pancake, Yuna goes pale from his blasphemy. To make it worse, Oryu insists they must have fairy tales for brains, so Yuna finally loses it and tries to perform a ritual to curse the knave fool. Thankfully, Yaa manages to stop her. The next day, more and more visitors come to the shrine while Oryu broods by a tree, lamenting how none of that mambo-jumbo works. Suddenly, he overhears Yuna's atrocious attempt to speak English to a little girl who will go home to have nightmares now. Oryu steps in and fluently tells the girl to accept the talisman, so the girls gladly grabs it and waves them goodbye. Afterward, Oryu offers to teach Yuna some better English, so she doesn't scare off the foreign tourists, but Yuna refuses to take help from him. However, she thanks him for stepping in and promises to study her English more. Suddenly, a bird swoops down and steals her red string. Yuna remembers when her mom handed them those red strings and they instantly became treasures. Now some overgrown mosquito has flown away with it. Later, Yuna looks depressed cause she hasn't found it yet, so her sisters assure her that the gods will surely help them find it later. Oryu suddenly butts in and scolds them for leaving everything to the gods. He insists that no amount of prayer would actually make their wishes come true, and they had to get at their and do it themselves. Yuna fires back and says the gods would never abandon anyone who prays to them for help. As she walks off angrily, she tells him he clearly doesn't belong here. Oryu returns to his room, thinking it's best to stay away from Yuna. However, when the girls go to check on him, they find he's no longer there. Yuna immediately freaks out, and they end up wondering how they can make the two of them get along. Unfortunately, Asadi was too busy searching for any of Oryu's jizz materials to listen to Ya's worries. Suddenly, Ya notices a picture of Oryu and his mom, and Asadi reminds her of what their grandpa told them. Apparently, Oryu had lost his mom when he was young and ended up in an orphanage. They figure that he probably prayed to the gods back then, but got a divine middle finger in return. That's why he doesn't believe in the gods anymore. Asadi then assures Ya that Yuna and Oryu are more alike than they think, while Yuna eavesdrops on them. Meanwhile, Oryu searches all the birds' nests he can find for Yuna's red string. After failing, he decides to try again in the morning, but then he remembers the girls praying and decides to try it out. At the same time, Yuna searches everywhere for Oryu when she finds him praying for her to find her treasure. Yuna joins him and commends him on his prayer, so Oryu apologizes for being an asshat earlier. Yuna apologizes too, and when she sees his dirty hands, she tells him that since he has a little respect for the gods, he can live at the shrine. Just then, the girls show up, relieved to find them, though Asadi is convinced they were secretly taboo humping. They head back to the house together and agree that if a miracle happens, they'll be able to find the red string. At that moment, Oryu is shocked to see the magical star shower occur, so they all stare at it surprised. However, Oryu realizes it's just a meteor shower in cherry blossoms, falling at the exact same time. So much for miracles. The girls wonder how long the stick-up his is and ask if the sight in front of him isn't as beautiful as a miracle. Oryu finally agrees, and while they're talking, Yuna's red strings gets removed from a bird's nest and falls on top of her. The next day, the priest Chidori finally arrives, so the girls tell him everything was fine in his absence. Chidori then welcomes Oryu and explains that once he gets married, he'll take over the role of being priest. When Oryu asks what the hell is talking about, the geezer tells him he'll get to wed and bed one of his granddaughters. Oryu immediately objects and says he only planned on being a freeloader. He adds that he wants to be a doctor, not a priest, but Chidori assures him that being a priest is flexible, so he can work 2 jobs. The girls also object, but when Chidori ignores them, Oryu insists that he won't go through with it. Chidori calmly informs him that he plans to transfer him to a school that would increase his chances of getting into his dream university. Upon hearing this, Oryu begs him to forgive his insolence and asks how many grandkids he wants. Chidori laughs as he walks away, while Oryu plans to find a way to escape any pesky wedding bells. Later, the girls hold an anti-Oryu meeting led by Yuna, who thinks the old man must have dementia. The other girls agree that it would be weird to marry him out of the blue, and Yuna adds that Oryu doesn't even believe in God. They wonder what they can do, so Yuna suggests they find a way to kick him out of the house. After, the operation commences and Yuna tells Oryu he'll have to do housework instead of freeloading. His first task is cooking, so Yuna shows him a fridge emptier than Ye's brain. She figures there's no way he can whip something up with those ingredients, but she stands corrected when he presents a Gordon Ramsay special. The girls quickly stuff their faces, and even though the meal was impeccable, Yuna says he's not off the hook yet. Next up, he's forced to do the laundry. Yuna hopes he'd fold under the heat of the sun, while Ye wonders if it's a good idea to give him access to their plot covers. Surprisingly, Oryu doesn't bat an eyelid at their unmentionables, and it ends up being more of a challenge for the girls to witness. After suffering this self-inflicted embarrassment, Oryu folds the laundry into neat piles that make them look like they were brand new. However, Yuma insists that it's not over yet and is forced to whip out her secret weapon. Oryu will have to clean Ye's room. Ye's room is the spitting image of a pigsty, so Yuna wished him good luck on his mission. Oryu wondered where to start from, as his nose was getting defiled by something rotten. He discovered the source was some oil paintings, since Ye was an art major. Oryu almost lost his life in the process, but he presented a sparkling clean room in the end. Ye felt they should let him stay in the house after putting him through that, and Asadi added that they could use a handymaid too. When Oryu heard this, he thanked them for their short-lived hospitality, but if he had to do housework every day, he wouldn't be able to read for medical school. Because of this, Oryu packs his bags and leaves to achieve his dreams. The girls felt weird about his exit, but Yuna insisted that their plan must have been a great success. However, Ye and Asahi looked sad to see him go. Later on the train, Uryu was back to studying hard, while the girls were secretly stalking him. They tease Yuna for being a softie, though she denies even having a heart. They wonder why Uryu was passionately aiming to be a doctor, and thought it was probably because of his mother. The stalking continued from the station, all the way to a secluded area where the trail ended at a house haunted by crows and bad omens. Yuna worried that Uryu was planning to live in the slums because she kicked him out, but Uryu snuck up on them and scared the salt out of Yuna. They wonder what's up with all the kids, while the kids try to name the planets on their chests. Uryu asked them what they were doing there, but he got interrupted by the owner of the house and a Dr. Mahiru. They head inside and Mahiru explains that she runs the orphanage called Miracle Garden. She thanks the girls for taking in a deadbeat like Uryu and says they're too pretty to be his future wives. She assures them that Uryu has some good qualities and teases him for aiming to be a doctor because of her. Uryu stops her before she mentions what he does at night. Then he insists he's not returning to the shrine or marrying them. Mahiru quickly grabs his mouth and threatens him, reminding him of the strings she pulled to get him a foster home. After, the kids run up to Uryu to show him their paper cranes, and when Uryu looks surprised, another girl named Shireti pops out. Uryu wonders what she's doing there, but she says she was just visiting. The girls wonder who she is, so Uryu explains that she's a childhood friend that used to live there too. Asadi bets Uryu's the reason she dresses like a boy, but Yuna tells her to cut it out. One of the kids shows his paper crane to the girls and says it's for his mom. So Mahiru explains that they also take care of parents whose illnesses make it difficult to care for their kids. That's why they were making paper cranes on strings to send to them. The girls think it's a great idea, but Uryu calls it a waste of time. Yuna tells him he's wrong and tells the kids to ignore the buzzkill while they help them with their cranes. After a while, the girls present a train wreck. Ye's crane was doing way too much. Yuna was too slow with hers and Asadi was too clumsy. The kids gather round and tell Uryu the girls were a waste of twin planets and asks for his help instead. Uryu couldn't resist their pleas and helped them make 1,000 paper cranes. The girls marveled at how good he was, while Uryu lamented wasting his precious time on screaming children. However, when he overheard a kid wondering if the crane would truly help his mom get better, it triggered a memory from his past. He grabbed the paper crane and handed it to the kid, assuring him that when the doctors see the charms, they'll do their best, so the boy cheered up instantly. Mahiru walked in and told the girls that Uryu was so good at paper cranes because he folded thousands of them for his mother. Because of that, he's the one who understands the kids the most. The girls realize that Uryu wants to be a doctor because of the kids, so Shirati adds that Uryu has always been there for them when they're anxious or sad. At that, Mahiru calls the girls' attention and tells them to take good care of Uryu. Later on, the girls continue to play outside with the children, while Mahiru congratulates Uryu on bagging 3 shrine ladies. However, Uryu laments that they wanted him to do all the chores, making it hard for him to study at all. Mahiru says Uryu has always been able to do many things with his hands, but his mouth has had a hard time keeping up. However, she assures him that those 3 girls came all this way because they care about him, and he'd be making a mistake if he thought he wasn't welcome. She then reminds him of when he was a kid and wanted to help her with all the chores or taking care of the kids. Mahiru had told him that she was glad to do it all herself. Uryu smiles and decides not to complain anymore, even if it means doing everything like she did. Mahiru approves and wishes him good luck. Later, the girls tease Uryu for having a crush on Mahiru, but he tells them to shut their pie holes and explains that he owes her his life. He then apologizes for being selfish and leaving the house like that. He offers to do any housework they want him to, so Yuna tells him that they'll become lazy if they do that. So they all offer to help out since they're family now. Uryu gladly accepts, but the girls turn out to be housework. His room was back to square one in less than a day. Asahi didn't understand the concept of using a line, and Yuna could watch paint dry faster than she could cook. Uryu realized there was no hope for the trio of airheads. Just then Chidori popped in and said he was glad Uryu was finally acting like a successor. However, Uryu still planned to do something about that marriage part later. Chidori then suggested that he should have a formal marriage interview with each of his granddaughter to deepen their bonds. Some days later, Chidori comes to drag Uryu for his first marriage interview. Uryu figures the sisters are just as uninterested as he is until he sees Asadi playing her part all too well. Chidori announces the beginning of the interview, so Asadi informs Uryu that he'll have to spend the day with her. Chidori leaves to let the crazy kids have fun. so Asahi tells Yuryu they should enjoy the fun while it lasts. She then gets up close and starts to take off her robes, making Yuryu pretend to shield his eyes. Unfortunately, all he sees is a talking flatboard that wants to go running. Moments later, Asahi and Yuryu go running together and she explains that running is basically like breathing to her. Yuryu doesn't take her seriously since she's the most happy-go-lucky of the sisters, so Asahi threatens to leave him behind. Yuryu smugly says there was no way she could smoke him until he ends up half dead 5 hours later. He heads inside, hoping to take a shower, but finds the door wide open, revealing Asahi's barren chest. Asahi then teases that she prefers getting open air, but Yuryu calls her sick. The next morning, Yuryu realizes he overslept and blames Asahi for tiring him out. However, Asahi suddenly appears in his bed and tells him she'd like to continue their interview. Before she subjects him to an early morning marathon session, she wants to grab a new pair of running shoes. Yuryu calls her out on just using him, but Asahi says she's got to tell her grandpa they did the interview. Yuryu sees the storage room has been hit with the same tornado that ran through Ya's room, but Asahi is too busy fantasizing about being locked alone with the boy. The plot gods quickly pulled some strings and locked the doors so they couldn't get out. Asahi broke the news that since it's an old door, it wasn't going to budge. Yuryu tries to think up a solution when he notices Asahi begin to malfunction. Unlike her usual flirty self, he then remembers what she said in the bathroom and figures that she's scared of cramped spaces. Asahi tries to deny it, but when Yuryu sees her shaking, he places his hand on her head to calm her down. He then offers his back as protection so Asahi clings tight to him, while Yuryu tries to break through the window. Later that morning, Yuryu finally managed to make a hole big enough for him to fit through. Asahi notices his bruised hands and is moved by how brave he is till he realizes how high the room is and starts stalling. Eventually, he drags himself down and opens the door for Asahi, who has the audacity to tease him for having a phobia. As they leave, Asahi thanks him for his help, so Yuryu turns around and tells her that now that he thinks about it, she sometimes has a childish side. Asahi turns as red as your old report card and denies it, but suddenly, Ya and Asahi run up to ask where she's been all morning. Asahi tells them she had an unforgettable night with Yuryu, triggering Yuna and her salt. The next day, Yuryu prepares to face Yuna, but when he sees her fully in wifey mode, he suspects the world is ending. They take a walk together, and Yuna acts unusually gentle and sweet. Yuryu wonders who this is and what she did with Yuna, till he notices her wave off a cat. Later, Yuryu asks Yuna why she's been acting strangely. Suddenly, Yuna pushes him down and tries to come onto him, but Yuryu pushes her back, insisting that he didn't want to make crack babies. Yuna finally returns to her bossy self and explains that she's only doing this for the sake of the shrine. She then leaves to pick flowers while the other girls say that was downright hard to watch. Later, Yuryu tries to ask the girls why Yuna is doing way too much if she really hates him. That's when the girls reveal that Yuna is only trying to protect them from the grim fate of marrying Yuryu's ugly face. Apparently, she's always been like that, so Yuryu asks the girls what Yuna likes. Later, Yuryu tells Yuna to get changed so they can continue the rest of their interview. He then takes her to a cat cafe, and though she tries to deny being a closeted cat lady, she can't stop herself from making goo-goo noises at it. She suddenly suggests they leave, but when Yuryu reminds her they just arrived, she says she can't afford to be lazy. Yuryu tells her that the girls are worried that she's been overworking herself for the shrine, but Yuna insists that it's her mission. Yuryu can relate to her, but he reminds her that her sisters also matter, so she should treat her downtime as part of her mission too. Yuryu offers to forget his studies and play with cats for the rest of the day, so Yuna also lightens up and starts having fun with her kitty. Later, Yuna says she needs to take her sisters there sometime, and Yuryu agrees that it's pretty addictive. Yuna then tosses a doll to him and thanks him for getting her out of her to relax. When Yuna acts unusually sweet and calm, Yuryu asks if she has a brain parasite, making Yuna default to factory settings and toss salt at him. The next day, Yuryu waits for his last interview with Yae, but when she takes her sweet time, he barges upstairs to ask why. He accidentally walks in on her changing and nosebleeds his way out. However, when he asks what's taking so long, she assures him she'll be out in a second. A week passes and Yuryu returns, prepared to barge in on her, but he finds that she's gone already. When he asks the girls, they have no idea where she went, and when Yuna starts to panic, Yuryu tries to figure out where he could have gone. Later, Yuryu finds Yae drawing at the Inari shrine and asks her what she's doing. When Yae asks how he found her, he tells her the creepy fox drawing kind of tipped him off. He then insists on knowing the reason why she ditched the interview, so Yae asks if he really has a crush on her. When he tells her to cut it out, She says it's a secret and assures him we'll probably find out soon enough. Ye suggests they do the interview at the shrine instead, so they go around taking pictures and acting like total tourists. Once the interview is over, Yadi hands him a charm to ward off evil as a token of her apology. As they walk off, Hiryu wonders if there's more to Yae than being an airhead, but then she suddenly asks who he's chosen to marry. Yae lists Yuna and Asahi's good sides, but for her, she's got something a lot more soft and bouncy to offer. Hiryu gets flustered and accidentally steps off the staircase, causing him to fall backward. His life starts to flash before his eyes until he sees memories he doesn't recognize, hinting that he'll marry all three sisters. He then wakes up and sees it was all a dream. Later, he heads to Ya's room to find out what really happened after their interview, but the idiot is of no help. Yuna shows up to nag Hiryu for bothering Yae. Then she sends him to go pick up some tea cakes for an important guest. While Yuryu's at the store, he overhears some aunties talking about the upcoming Amigami festival, but they haven't been to the shrine in a long time. When Hiryu returns to the house, he finds the important guest who advises them to put the shrine up for sale. Chidori introduces the white-hair man as Moemon, who is basically the shrine's sugar daddy. Moemon explains that since the shrine isn't pulling customers like before, they'll have to stop his financial support, but he offers to let them keep the house. When their mom was still alive, she was once able to gather 1,000 people to the festival, but since she kicked the bucket, they haven't even pulled 30% of that. Suddenly, the man's face wrinkles like Sukuna's finger, as he mocks their mother for working herself to death. Yuna almost burst a blood vessel in anger, but her sisters manage to calm her down. Hiryu quickly interrupts the cruel man and tries to cut a deal in exchange for pulling 5,000 visitors to the festival. When the man warns him that his dreams are childish, Asahi comes to his defense and says they're no longer kids. Yae politely asks the bitter old man to give them more time, so they all vow to appease him. Moemon agrees to the deal, but he refuses to give them money for the festival, and adds that if they fail to pull 5,000 people, they'll have to give up the house too. After hearing this, Hiryu is surprised to hear the girls agree to the terms with Chidori in full support. Before leaving, Moemon shows them his severe pink eye condition and warns them not to regret their decision. Afterward, Yuna scolds Hiryu for provoking the devil's younger brother, so the girls try and think up a plan to pull it off when they notice Hiryu's gone. They find him weeding through the previous festival registers and agree that they might be able to pull it off with his help. The next day, Hiryu looks like he's one eye bag away from becoming a zombie when he informs the girls of a drop-in stalls at the festival. The girls explain that since their mom died, they became estranged from the stall owners and Chidori was too busy taking care of them to keep up. However, the girls insist that they're old enough to run the festival by themselves now. Hiryu suggests resorting to Plan B, which is to use social media to get people's attention, so Yuna assures him that they're masters of the internet. Their first poster turned out horrible, so Hiryu suggests using them as the campaign girls. Asahi mocks him for thinking they're cute, but Hiryu is not ashamed to admit that he does. Yuna objects to doing such a vulgar thing as a shrine maiden, so Asahi volunteers to do the work, since she's the cutest sister. Unfortunately, she was only cute enough to garner one like, which was probably sent by her mother's ghost. Since that didn't work, they tried a strained picture of Yuna, but only 2 people gave a shit. Frustrated, Asahi turned to Yae's outrageous cup size to do the trick, but it got 0 likes and Hiryu now had to bleach his eyes. Hiryu points out that she's barely advertising the shrine or the festival, so Asahi plans to try lewd photos in their maiden uniforms. At this, Yuna shows up and calls her a failure as a shrine maiden for disrespecting God. Asahi fires back and insists that Yuna is the real failure for thinking God was the only important thing to consider. As the girls face off, Yae appears and warns them to behave so they don't get on her bad side. However, at the dinner, the girls don't say a word to each other, which bothers Hiryu. Later, Hiryu finds Yuna practicing her selfie poses when he asks if she's made up with Asahi. He then shows Yuna just how hard Asahi has been working and asks if she still thinks she's a failure. At this, Yuna texts Asahi a selfie of her to ask for pointers. While Asahi responds to her excitedly, Yuna hugs her from behind and apologizes for being a tsundere. The girls finally make up, so Yae runs in to join the mushy moment, and while the girls are messing around, Hiryu takes a picture which ends up going viral. After, they continued to make TikTok content of the shrine that did just as well. Because of this, Hiryu suggested they move on to Phase 2, which was making limited items for sale. Yadi was put in charge of designing the talismans, but 2 days later, Hiryu almost ran mad from asking her for the designs. The airhead had been procrastinating the whole time, but she assured him she'd get it to him the next morning. Uryu later realized they were in trouble because everything from Ya's mouth was a lie. When he checked the room for her, she was already gone. Meanwhile, Ye was by the river watching some koi fish K-drama. When she saw the fish in love, it finally gave her inspiration for her own design. The next morning, Uryu showed the girls his replacement talisman designs, but they told him to stick to studying medicine at all costs. Just then, Ye wandered in with the new design, which everyone immediately praised for her genius. Ye explained the design of love was so they could reel in the young and desperately single. Uryu scolds Ya for being lenient with her pace and promises to keep an eye on her next time, but the girls call him creepy for wanting to stalk an older woman. However, Ye feels grateful that he'd go that far for her. Now with their social media success and the new talisman designs, the girls are excited for the festival. But Uryu tells them they have one more important thing to do. Later, they head toward the town's shopping district, and the girls lament how nervous they are. They eventually meet with the stall owners from before, and Uryu asks for their help to make the festival a success. After explaining that the shrine was in financial trouble, Uryu and the girls vowed to ask for their help. To their surprise, the stall owners were more than happy to help. The girls hoped they were not imposing, but they explained that they had already been discussing the festival anyway. The stall owners admit that ever since the previous owner died, they had been reluctant to go there, but they never thought the shrine would be struggling. Their families had been helped by the Amigamas for generations, so they were glad to help them protect it. Uryu and the girls thanked them for their help. Then the stall owners suggested they hold a strategy meeting immediately. Later, as the girls watched Uryu with the stall owners, they were reminded of their mother. They admit that they've learned so much thanks to Uryu, and believe they can finally make the festival a success. The day of the festival arrives, so Uryu and the girls get ready to gather those visitors and save the shrine. However, when hours pass and they've had more tumbleweed than visitors, they figure something must be wrong. At that moment, Asahi runs up with a phone and shows them a fake account claiming the festival has been cancelled. Ye suggests warning the people about the fake news, but their account was already blocked since they looked like imposters. At the same moment, the Japanese Voldemort rejoiced in the success of his plan to teach the Amigami girls a lesson. Back at the shrine, Uryu and Asahi curse Moemon for doing this, since no one else would be sick enough to try it. Yuna reminds them of all the effort they put in for the festival, which was going to get ruined by a man whose eyes looks like toenail clippings. Yak and Asahi feel just as bad as Yuna, but Uryu assures them it's not over yet. After looking at the festival schedule, Uryu suggests they focus on the afternoon events to draw visitors' attention. He tells the girls a plan to attract sweaty dudes in New Balance sneakers, and the girls freak out and warn him they might get in trouble. However, Chidori overhears and insists that it's a good idea. The stall owners also say they're ready to help, so Uryu grabs some flyers to pass around and leaves the rest to the girls. As the girls watch and run off, Asahi asks if God will scold them, but Chidori tells them the most important thing is to have fun with God. The stall owners agree to have fun too and share in the girls' happiness. Meanwhile, Ryu tries to pass out flyers for the festival, but something about a man in a bathrobe just doesn't get people to respond. Just then, Mahiru shows up to help and show him how it's done. Shirahi and the kids also show up to help, so Uryu asks what they're all doing there. Mahiru says they heard they were in trouble and figured Uryu would be trying to solve it alone. They tell Uryu to lighten up and agree to stay and help. With this, they're finally able to pass out the flyers just in time for the main attraction. Yuna and the girls show up on a parade float to show off girls in bathrobes instead. When the crowd sees how cute the shrine maidens are, they decide to stop by the festival. Moemon watches this happen and laments his plan going sour. Meanwhile, the girls lament how much Uryu disrespects God, but since they're already up there, they decide to have fun with it. The crowd is drawn to the girls, making Uryu think they can finally hit 5,000 visitors. However, it starts to rain and everyone runs for shelter. Because of this, the festival is left emptier than Ye's brain, and the radio broadcast says the storm is likely to continue for a long time. Uryu looks defeated as he stares at their visitor counter. He decides to head out in the rain, despite the girls warning him about catching a cold. But despite their luck, the girls assure Uryu that God would never turn his back on them and would surely lend a helping hand. At this, they run to the prayer stand and beg God to help them with the festival. Uryu watches the girls pray aimlessly in the rain and takes off running. Uryu feels frustrated by how powerless he feels and wonders what he can possibly do to change things. Just then, the storm comes to an end, and Yuryu notices something incredible. The girls catch up to him to make sure he's okay, so Yuryu points out a scene from a Disney fairy tale, making Yuryu think it really might be a miracle. Moments later, the girls put on a shrine performance in the middle of the cherry blossom trees. The crowd watches as they wave their fans around in perfect unison, and one lady even shares the moment on her TikTok live. After shaking their bells a little longer, the performance finally ends with a bow. The crowd cheers as the leaves continue to fall, adding to the attraction. Yuna is grateful for the miracle when she sees the huge turnout, and Asahi points out how this really turned into a lake of love. As the people continue to watch, Asahi says it reminds her of the days their mom was around. At this, the girls are encouraged to do even better as shrine maidens, so Yuna suggests they bring more people to the shrine and to God. Thanks to this, a ton of people visit the festival, and Ye's designs are an instant hit. Yuryu mans the store as a one-man army, so Mahiru shows up to help him again, causing Yuryu to thank her for the help. Mahiru says she's always wanted to cosplay as a shrine maiden anyway, but she's mostly glad many people were able to visit the festival. When she points out how hard it is to live in a shrine, Ryu laments how the girls keep pushing him around, and he's barely getting any study time. There's still the issue of marrying one of them, which is enough to drive him crazy, and not the good kind. However, Mahiru points out how much trouble he goes through to help them, so Yuryu says he only felt no one should go unrewarded after so much hard work. Another customer comes up, and as Yuryu attends to her, Mahiru sees that he's actually enjoying himself. After sunset, the group notices they're one person short, and there's only 5 minutes left. Unfortunately, there are no more visitors left, so Moenmon shows up to brag that they're out of time. However, to their surprise, Moenmon tells them they passed, and that he'll continue to support them. They inform him that they're one visitor short, so he tells them to add him to the list. He counts on them to bring more visitors from then on and leaves. While they drive off, Moenmon brags they won't get cheeky again if they owe him a favor. Back at the shrine, Ryu is relieved to have the shrine saved, while Asahi can't believe they actually pulled 5,000 visitors. She sheds a tear of joy that they can continue living there, causing Yuna to hug her, and admit she can't believe it either. Yet he agrees and says it was all thanks to Yuryu. To express her gratitude, she kisses him on the cheek, causing his brain to short-circuit. When he starts to nosebleed, Yuna senses his dirty thoughts and prepares the salt while Chidori watches them proudly. The next day, Yuryu tries to study when he remembers the kiss from Ye and slams his head into the table to exorcise his crotch demon. After agonizing over it, Yuryu wonders if Ye might actually like him. Asahi shows up and says he's overthinking it and will end up distracted from his studies. Yuryu admits it, so Asahi offers to find out Ye's true feelings for him. That afternoon, Asahi asks Ye what she thinks of Yuryu, and when she tells him he's a good guy, Asahi tells Yuryu that's girl code for he doesn't matter. Yuryu tries to accept his L gracefully when Asahi admits that even they don't know what planet Ye is on half of the time. She decides the only way to pull out her true feelings is to back her into a corner by forcing her to go running. Ye lags behind thanks to the anchors on her chest, and Yuryu wonders if this is actually a trap. Once Ye is exhausted, Asahi asks what she thinks of Yuryu again, but Ye says she only cares about going home and taking a bath. When they return home, Asahi and Ye soak off together, and Ye asks why Asahi invited her on the run. Asahi gets embarrassed as she asks why Ye kissed Yuryu. She explains that even though Yuryu is good-looking if you close both eyes, he's just a rando who is being forced to marry one of them. Asahi asks if Ye has actually come to like him, but Ye playfully says she's not telling, shocking Asahi. After, Asahi reports her failure to Yuri, who says it was probably a dumb idea to involve someone who's younger anyway. Asahi gets upset, so when Yuryu tries to pat her head in appreciation, she blocks it and tells him she doesn't like being treated like a child. Yuryu apologizes and says she reminded him of the orphanage kid, so Asahi decides to show him she's not so innocent. She climbs on top of him and nibbles on his ear. When he asks why, she says she's not telling and runs out of the room, leaving him with a developing brain tumor. The next day, Yuryu struggles to brush his teeth thanks to the lustful thoughts of tag-teaming the sisters. Yuryu prays Yuna would at least be saner when he stumbles into her acting strange. Yuna insists she's not hiding anything when Ye shows up and asks what's wrong. Yuryu says Yuna's hiding something, so Asahi advises her to talk to Yuryu about it. But Yuna says he might leak the information. That night, Yuryu manages to complete his study session without a hitch, so he wonders if the girls have been abducted by aliens. He rushes out to check when he finds Asahi crouching outside Yuna's room. She tells him to keep it down and watch something interesting, so they witness Yuna hard at work to make a talisman. Asahi explains that her birthday is the next day, so Yuryu figures the girls were hiding their presents for her earlier. Asahi says Yuna sucks at keeping secrets, so they go over to Ye's room and find her sewing stuffed animals for demons to possess later. By midnight, Ye tells Yuna her present is cute, but Asahi would definitely like hers better. However, Yuna scoffs and insists her present was better. The girls begin to argue while Yuryu watches. He asks Asahi if she even cares about either gift, but she just smiles to herself. Suddenly, Ye and Yuna trip and ruin both of their gifts, so Yuryu prepares to go in and scold them when Asahi stops him and tells him to watch. Asahi asks the girls what they're up to, so they wish her a happy birthday and apologize for screwing up her presents since they're such klutzes. However, Asahi appreciates Yuna for focusing hard on making one thing, while Ye made so many things for her. She says she loves them both and thanks them, so they all share a wholesome hug. When Yuryu comes closer, Asahi says the only thing that matters is all the effort they made for her sake. She then asks Yuryu what he has to say, so he shyly wishes her a happy birthday while the girls head back to bed. Later that morning, Yuna and Ye wake up, wishing they could have given Asahi their gifts. They suddenly spot Asahi, who says she's got something interesting to see, so they enter the living room to find the broken presents back to normal. Beside them, Yuryu is fast asleep as he holds a book about hand-sewn accessories. The girls think it was sweet of him, and Asahi finds a note wishing her a happy birthday. Later, Yuryu has a dream where Yuna tells him she wants to express her gratitude and plants a kiss on him. Yuryu wakes up and wonders what that was about while the talisman from Ye lies nearby. He then gets a text from Mahiro asking if he's free. Later, Asahi and Ye show up in Yuryu's room with their requests when they notice he isn't in there. Yuna tells them he was called by Mahiro, so the girls say they'll simply wait for him to return. Yuna worries that they're relying too much on him and brings up Ye's surprise kiss. Yuna hopes Asahi hasn't done anything R-rated either, but Asahi's red face gives it away. Yuna proceeds to scold the girls, warning that they could ruin their reverence as shrine maidens. However, the girls tell her she's too cold toward him and ought to show some gratitude for everything he does for them. Meanwhile, Mahiro hands Yuryu a new uniform for school, so he asks why she called him over instead of delivering it. Mahiro admits that she wanted to see his face, making Yuryu flustered. She then asks how life with the Shrine Maidens has been, and Yuryu says it's been hell. Yuna is diligent but stubborn, while Ye is an airhead who only works at her own pace. As for Asahi, she's bad at detailed work too, so he ends up doing everything for the girls. Mahiro points out that he seems to be getting a kick out of doing all their work for them. She tells him that it's both his bad side and his good side, but he needs to focus on getting into medical school. After, Yuryu walks home with a new determination to become a doctor and repay Mahiro for everything she's done. On the way, he notices Yuna waiting for him and asks what she wants, so she says she just wants to talk to him. They take a walk together and the awkward silence kicks in. Suddenly, Yuna asks for his shoulders and begins to rub them so he feels better, but Yuryu wonders what's gotten into her. She notices his shoelace is undone and bends down to fix it, but when he sees the free access to her milk jugs, he insists on tying his shoe himself. Yuryu asks what's up with her, so Yuna says she's just trying to express her gratitude. At that moment, Yuryu remembers his dream and realizes everything is happening exactly like the dream. As Yuna keeps talking, Yuryu wonders if the dream was prophetic, which means she tried to kiss him. However, Yuna only thanks Yuryu, which leaves him relieved, until a girl mistakenly pushes Yuna toward him, just like in the dream. But this time, Yuryu stops her by putting his hand in the way. Then he scoots back and realizes the dream was right. Yuna grabs her salt bag and tosses salt in the air, then she tells him they should get going. Yuna wonders what Asahi's so conscious about, so he snaps back to normal and walks off. However, Yuna replays the moment they almost kissed and throws some more salt on herself to purify the filth in her heart. That night, Yuryu has a dream that the girls head to a new shrine in Arashiyama. There, Yuna turns into an airhead. Ye has a shocked expression on her face, and Asahi looks like she's passed out. The last thing he sees is all the girls sleeping with him before he wakes up. Later at breakfast, Yuna suggests they go to Tsukigami. When Yuryu asks what that is, Asahi says it's a shrine in Arashiyama, making Yuryu nervous. The master of the shrine taught the girls how to be shrine maidens, and now that they've been getting more visitors than usual, they'll need her help again. Yuryu is still recovering from the shock when Asahi asks if he'd like to come too. However, Yuryu absolutely refuses. He returns to his room and plans to stop his dream from coming true at all costs. Suddenly, Chidori comes in and tells Yuryu he has an important item for him to deliver. Moments later, Yuryu races down the street carrying a mystery box. When he arrives at the shrine, he realizes the future won't be so easy to change. Later, Yuryu barges in with the item from Chidori and reveals that it's apparently carrying something evil. The girls wonder if an evil spirit has been sealed inside, so Yomiko tells everyone to calm down and first introduces herself to Yuryu as the assistant priest. Yuryu asks what an assistant priest is, so Asahi explains that it's a rank in priesthood, which makes Yomiko the master of shrine maidens. Yuryu then asks what they should do with the box, so Yomiko tells him to leave it to her. She begins to give off superhero aura, which she uses to open the box, but it turns out it just contains cinnamon mochi.
What?
Causing Yuryu to silently curse the sneaky old priest. Yomiko places it on the table for everyone to enjoy while Yuryu continues to watch her closely. While they eat, Yomiko explains that the Tsukigami shrine was dedicated to the moon god, who leads people out of their worries into light and hope. Yuna adds that Tsukigami could even make their dreams come true, but that part is more like a fairy tale. Legend has it that on the night of the full moon, if you walk over the illuminated rainbow, your dreams will come true. After this, the girls tell Yomiko how they've been getting more visitors at the shrine and struggling to keep up, so they need her advice. Yomiko says she understands and starts addressing each of the girls. She tells Asahi she's become much prettier since she last saw her. She tells Yuna to stop calling her master since it's not cute, and then she grabs Yea's melons to see if they have any juice, making Yuryu wonder if she's right in the head. After, she announces she booked a hot spring in for everyone, so the girls all get excited at the prospect of soaking their problems away. As they head to the inn, Yuryu says he has to leave and return to his studies. Suddenly, he notices a group of shrine maidens lined up, so Yomiko explains that it's routine for them to offer gratitude to the gods every day. Yuna is impressed by Yomiko's skill in overseeing so many maidens, and even Yuryu has to admit he misjudged her. Asahi assures the girls their shrine would be just as great someday, so Yomiko rewards her with more head pats and lack of personal space. The other girls join in and Yuryu watches them bond with Yomiko. Before Yomiko can send them off to the inn, Yuryu asks Yomiko why she dodged the girls' questions at lunch. Yomiko commends Yuryu on being observant, but she says she's not inclined to give them advice because it's just too much for them to handle. When the girls try to object, Yomiko asks if they're really ready to devote themselves to the shrine. She points out how Asahi and Yuna were approaching their entrance exam years, while Ye needs to start thinking of a career path after university. She reminds them that they only live once and advises them to figure out what their dreams really are. At this, Yuna insists that she's ready to devote her life to her family, the shrine's visitors, and God, begging Yomiko for help. However, Yomiko tells her that a sense of responsibility just simply wasn't enough. Asahi tries to assure Yomiko that they're proper shrine maidens now, so Yomiko tells her they shouldn't need her help if that's the case. Ye can't even think of anything to say. Yomiko tries to leave once again when Ryu tells her she's being unnecessarily cold to the girls. He scolds her for not understanding how much the girls care about the shrine when she's known them for longer than he has. At this, Yomiko reminds Ryu that he'd also have to marry into the family for the shrine to survive, so she asks him if he's really thought it through. Now, even Ryu is stunned speechless. Yomiko tells the group to reevaluate their plans for their future and let them know by the next day. Later, Ryu and the girls collectively soap at the shrine's entrance. Yuna pulls her usual disappearing act and walks off alone. Then Ryu says he has to go too, so he can study. He reveals that he has zero intention of taking over their shrine and begins to walk off when Yuna suddenly collapses. Ryu tries to ask what's wrong when he sees the airhead face just like he saw in his dream. Meanwhile, Yomiko tells a mystery caller that Yuryu is just like they described and promises to determine which of the girls can take on the duties of the shrine. Back at the entrance, Asahi figures that Yuna is in a funk since she got scolded. Yuryu suggests Ie would be the best to talk to her, but the second airhead already escaped to God knows where. At this, Asahi switches to marathon mode to search for Ie, but when Yuryu reminds her about Yuna, she says she just needs some time to herself, and the third airhead takes off. Yuryu asks Yuna if she's okay, but she begins to repeat catchphrases like a broken Barbie doll. She eventually snaps out of it and tells Yuryu not to worry. Later, Yuryu offers her some sweet red bean soup, but Yuna lets it slip and fall, which triggers her depression again. Uryu tries to cheer her up by reminding her how much she wants to be a shrine maiden. But Yuna confesses that she's only doing what's expected of her, and what she wants doesn't matter. At this, Ryu goes to get another can of bean soup when he notices Yomiko stalking Yuna. She quickly hides from him and tries to play it cool by claiming she was on a walk. But when Iryu returns to the bench, Yuna is gone. He begins to search all over the shrine for her till he finds her at the edge of the waterfall with that daft expression again. He realizes she's planning to do waterfall training and reminds her that she'll get her clothes soaked. At this, Yuna removes her pants and tries to proceed, so Ryu grabs her to prevent her from going in. Yuna begs him to let her go, but they continue to struggle till Ryu accidentally squeezes her stress ball. Yuna immediately freaks out and gives him hell for it. Later, Ryu apologizes but insists he was only trying to help. Yuna then scolds him for saying he had no intention of marrying their family, but still continuing to help around, while neglecting his studies. Ryu also gets mad and tells her that he doesn't care if he helps others to make himself feel good, because that's what he wants to do. This catches Yuna off guard, and she breaks into laughter at how pathetic Ryu sounded. She then remembers her time with Yomiko and realizes she doesn't need to be depressed anymore, all thanks to Ryu. If you want the next part, comment Ryu knows the best way to distress. And if you like anime recaps like this, then watch this video right here.